The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble courtyard of Buckingham Palace as Lady Margaret Whitmore adjusted her silk gloves one final time. As the Queen's newest consort, she had grown accustomed to the rigid protocols that governed every aspect of royal life, but today felt different. Today, she was about to make a request that would send shock waves through the centuries-old institution. Margaret had married into the royal family just 8 months ago, a union that had already stirred considerable controversy. The press had dubbed her the commoner's princess, though her background was far from ordinary. A successful businesswoman who had built a technology empire from scratch, she brought a modern perspective to the ancient halls of the monarchy. Her sharp mind and independent spirit had initially charmed the Queen, but those same qualities were now about to create an unprecedented crisis. The request itself seemed simple enough on the surface. Margaret needed transportation to attend a charity gala in London that evening, an event supporting underprivileged children's education programs. The Queen had encouraged her involvement in charitable work, seeing it as an excellent way for the new consort to connect with the public and establish her own identity within the royal framework. What made this particular request extraordinary was not the destination, but the specific vehicle Margaret had chosen. She wanted to use the Queen's personal Bentley State limousine, the same armored vehicle that had transported monarchs for decades and served as a symbol of royal authority and tradition. The car was more than mere transportation. It represented the crown itself, with its bulletproof glass, advanced security systems, and interior crafted from the finest British materials. No consort in the monarchy's long history had ever requested to use the sovereign's personal state car for an independent engagement. Margaret had spent weeks deliberating over this decision. She understood the symbolic weight of her request, but she also recognized the opportunity it represented. The charity gala would be attended by influential business leaders, politicians, and media figures from across Europe. Arriving in the Queen's state car would make a powerful statement about her position within the royal hierarchy and her commitment to her new role. It would also demonstrate the Queen's confidence in her, sending a message that Margaret was not merely a decorative addition to the family, but a trusted representative of the crown. The Queen's private secretary, Sir Hamilton Ashworth, had initially laughed when Margaret broached the subject during their weekly coordination meeting. His amusement quickly faded when he realized she was entirely serious. Sir Hamilton, a man who had served the monarchy for over 30 years, prided himself on his ability to navigate even the most delicate political situations. But Margaret's request left him genuinely speechless. He stammered through several attempts to explain why such a thing was impossible, before finally requesting time to consult with his colleagues. Word of the unusual request spread rapidly through the palace's intricate network of staff members, advisors, and security personnel. The royal household operated like a small city, with hundreds of employees whose livelihoods depended on maintaining the monarchy's reputation and traditions. Many of these individuals had dedicated their entire careers to preserving the institution's dignity and protocol. Margaret's request struck them as not merely unconventional, but potentially dangerous to the very foundations of royal authority. The Queen herself remained surprisingly calm when Sir Hamilton presented the matter to her during their morning briefing. She listened thoughtfully as he outlined the various concerns raised by different departments, from security worries to protocol violations. The monarch had ruled for decades by carefully balancing tradition with the need for modernization, and she recognized that Margaret's request represented exactly the kind of challenge she would face as the monarchy evolved to remain relevant in the 21st century. What truly complicated the situation was the involvement of the Royal Guard, the elite military unit responsible for protecting the royal family and their assets. Colonel James Blackwood, the Guard's commanding officer, viewed Margaret's request as a direct challenge to established security protocols. The state car was not simply a luxury vehicle, but a crucial component of the royal security apparatus. Its movements were planned weeks in advance, with detailed security assessments and coordinated protection details. Allowing a consort to use it for an independent engagement would require unprecedented modifications to their standard procedures. Colonel Blackwood was a decorated military veteran who had served in multiple conflict zones before accepting his position with the Royal Guard. He approached his duties with the same intensity he had brought to combat operations, viewing any deviation from established protocol as a potential threat to royal safety. Margaret's request represented exactly the kind of improvisation that made security professionals nervous. In his mind, the consort's desire to make a statement at a charity gala was far outweighed by the security risks her request would create. The tension between Margaret's modern approach and the institution's traditional values became apparent during a heated meeting in the Queen's private study. Present were the Queen herself, Margaret, Sir Hamilton, Colonel Blackwood, and several other key advisors. Margaret argued passionately for her request, emphasizing the positive publicity it would generate and the important charitable cause it would support. She pointed out that the monarchy needed to demonstrate its relevance to contemporary society, and that symbolic gestures like this could help bridge the gap between royal tradition and public expectations. Colonel Blackwood responded with a detailed analysis of the security challenges Margaret's request would create. He explained how the state car's deployment required coordination with multiple law enforcement agencies, advanced security sweeps of the route and destination, and backup contingency plans for various emergency scenarios. The charity gala had not been planned with these requirements in mind, and implementing them on short notice would strain his resources and potentially compromise other security operations. The Queen listened to both arguments with the patience and wisdom that had characterized her long reign. She recognized the validity of Margaret's desire to establish herself as a significant figure within the royal family. But she also understood Colonel Blackwood's security concerns. The decision she would make would set a precedent that could influence royal protocol for generations to come. As the meeting concluded without resolution, Margaret felt a growing sense of frustration. She had not married into the royal family to become a passive figure who simply attended ceremonial functions and waved from balconies. Her previous career had been built on taking calculated risks and challenging established norms when they no longer served their intended purpose. The monarchy's reluctance to embrace change struck her as short-sighted and potentially damaging to its long-term survival. That evening, as Margaret walked through the palace gardens, she reflected on the enormous adjustment her life had undergone. 8 months ago, she had been the CEO of a multinational corporation, making decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of customers. Now, she needed permission to choose which car would transport her to a charity event. The contrast was both humbling and infuriating, and it crystallized her determination to push forward with her request regardless of the resistance she encountered. Unknown to Margaret, her conversation with palace officials had already begun to leak beyond the walls of Buckingham Palace. Royal correspondents had extensive networks of sources within the royal household, and news of the consort's unusual request was spreading through London's media circles. The story combined several elements that made it irresistible to journalists: royal protocol, modern versus traditional values, and the ongoing public fascination with Margaret's integration into the royal family. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only Margaret's resolve, but also the monarchy's ability to adapt to changing times while maintaining its essential character and security. The first news report appeared on the BBC's morning program, just as Margaret was finishing her breakfast in the private dining room. Sarah Mitchell, a veteran royal correspondent with sources throughout the palace, broke the story with her characteristic blend of authority and diplomacy. She presented the facts carefully, noting that the consort had requested use of the Queen's state car for a charitable engagement, and that palace officials were reviewing the unprecedented request, Within hours, the story had exploded across every major news outlet in the United Kingdom and beyond. Social media platforms buzzed with commentary, debate, and speculation about Margaret's motives and the palace's likely response. The hashtag #RoyalCargate began trending on Twitter, with thousands of users weighing in on whether the request was reasonable or represented dangerous overreach by the newest member of the royal family. The public reaction split along predictable lines that reflected deeper divisions within British society about the monarchy's role in modern life. Traditional monarchists expressed outrage at what they saw as Margaret's audacious challenge to established protocol. They viewed her request as symptomatic of a broader erosion of respect for royal tradition and worried that granting it would open the floodgates to further departures from time-honored customs. Lady Patricia Thornberry, president of the Royal Heritage Foundation, appeared on multiple television programs throughout the day to express her concerns. An aristocrat whose family had served the crown for generations, Lady Patricia spoke with the authority of someone deeply invested in preserving royal traditions. She argued that the state car represented the sovereignty of the monarch and that allowing a consort to use it independently would dilute its symbolic power and confuse the public about the royal hierarchy. On the opposite side, progressive commentators and younger members of the public rallied to Margaret's defense. They saw her request as a reasonable expression of her role as a senior royal family member and praised her commitment to charitable work. These supporters argued that the monarchy needed to modernize its approach to protocol if it wanted to remain relevant to contemporary British society. They pointed out that Margaret's background in business and technology represented exactly the kind of expertise the royal family needed to connect with younger generations. The debate intensified when Colonel Blackwood made the unusual decision to speak publicly about the security concerns raised by Margaret's request. In an interview with the Times of London, he outlined the complex logistics involved in deploying the royal state car and explained why the charity gala venue presented particular challenges for his security team. The venue was located in a busy commercial district of London with multiple access points and limited opportunities for advanced security preparations. Colonel Blackwood's public statements marked a significant departure from the Royal Guard's traditional policy of maintaining complete silence about security matters. His decision to speak out reflected the depth of his concern about Margaret's request and his frustration with what he saw as unrealistic expectations about royal security. He emphasized that his primary responsibility was protecting the royal family, not accommodating their personal preferences when those preferences conflicted with security requirements. The colonel's intervention backfired spectacularly from a public relations perspective. Rather than educating the public about legitimate security concerns, his statements were interpreted by many as an unprecedented public rebuke of a royal family member by her own security detail. Media commentators seized on the apparent breakdown in communication between Margaret and the Royal Guard, speculating about deeper tensions within the palace hierarchy. Margaret found herself in the uncomfortable position of being publicly criticized by her own protection team, while being unable to respond directly due to royal protocol restrictions. The royal family's traditional policy of never complaining or explaining meant that she could not defend her request publicly or clarify her motivations. This silence was interpreted by some as arrogance and by others as dignified restraint, further dividing public opinion. The charity organization that was hosting the gala found itself thrust unwillingly into the center of a national controversy. The Children's Education Alliance had simply invited Margaret to attend their annual fundraising event, never imagining that her transportation arrangements would become a matter of public debate. The organization's director, Helen Morrison, spent the day fielding calls from journalists and trying to ensure that the charitable mission remained the focus of attention. Helen Morrison was a dedicated educator who had spent 20 years working to improve educational opportunities for disadvantaged children. She had been thrilled when Margaret accepted their invitation, hoping that royal patronage would bring additional attention and donations to their cause. Now she watched helplessly as the media focus shifted entirely to palace politics and protocol disputes, overshadowing the important work her organization was trying to accomplish. The political implications of the controversy became apparent when members of parliament began weighing in on the debate. The monarchy's relationship with elected officials had always been delicate, requiring careful balance between respect for tradition and recognition of democratic accountability. Margaret's request raised questions about the royal family's use of public resources and the appropriate limits of royal privilege in a democratic society. Conservative MPs generally supported the palace's apparent reluctance to grant Margaret's request, framing their position in terms of fiscal responsibility and respect for tradition. They argued that royal resources should be used judiciously and that departures from established protocol required careful consideration. Liberal MPs, however, saw the controversy as an opportunity to question broader issues about royal privilege and the monarchy's relevance in modern Britain. The European press picked up the story with enthusiasm, particularly in countries where Republican movements had gained strength in recent years. French newspapers drew parallels between Margaret's request and historical examples of royal excess, while German publications questioned whether the British monarchy was adapting quickly enough to contemporary expectations about accountability and transparency. International coverage of the controversy highlighted the global implications of royal protocol decisions. The British monarchy served as a symbol of stability and tradition for the entire Commonwealth, and conflicts within the royal family could potentially undermine that symbolic authority. Margaret's background as a successful businesswoman had already attracted international attention as an example of the monarchy's evolution, and the current controversy threatened to overshadow those positive developments. Social media analysis revealed fascinating demographic patterns in public opinion about Margaret's request. Younger users, particularly those under 30, overwhelmingly supported her position and criticized what they saw as outdated restrictions on royal family members. Older users were more divided, with many expressing concerns about maintaining royal dignity and tradition, while others appreciated Margaret's charitable commitments. The generational divide reflected broader questions about the monarchy's future in an increasingly diverse and democratic society. Margaret represented a new type of royal family member, one with independent professional achievements and modern expectations about personal autonomy. Her integration into royal life served as a test case for how successfully the institution could adapt to changing social norms while preserving its essential character. Palace insiders reported growing tensions among staff members as the controversy continued to dominate news cycles. Long-serving employees who had dedicated their careers to maintaining royal protocol felt that Margaret's request challenged their professional expertise and institutional authority. Newer staff members, however, were more sympathetic to her position and frustrated by what they saw as unnecessary rigidity in royal procedures. The Queen herself maintained public silence about the controversy, following her lifelong practice of avoiding direct involvement in public debates. Behind palace walls, however, she was carefully monitoring the situation and considering the long-term implications of whatever decision she ultimately made. The monarch understood that her response to Margaret's request would set important precedents for future royal protocol and could significantly impact the monarchy's public image. As evening approached and the charity gala drew nearer, the pressure for a resolution intensified. Margaret remained committed to attending the event, but the question of her transportation had become a symbol of much larger issues about royal modernization, security priorities, and the balance between tradition and progress in contemporary monarchy. The Queen's decision came at precisely 4 o'clock in the afternoon, delivered through Sir Hamilton in a manner that surprised everyone involved in the controversy. Rather than simply approving or denying Margaret's request, the monarch had crafted a solution that addressed the underlying issues while establishing new precedents for future situations. Margaret would be permitted to use the Queen's state car for the charity gala, but with specific conditions that satisfied both security requirements and protocol concerns. The deployment would serve as a pilot program for a new category of royal engagements that recognized the changing role of senior royal family members in contemporary society. The decision came with a comprehensive security package that Colonel Blackwood had worked throughout the day to develop, transforming his initial opposition into reluctant cooperation. The announcement was made through an official palace statement that carefully balanced tradition with innovation. The Queen had recognized that Margaret's request reflected legitimate aspirations that deserved consideration, while also acknowledging the security and protocol concerns raised by her staff. The solution demonstrated the monarchy's ability to evolve while maintaining its essential character and security requirements. Colonel Blackwood's transformation from opponent to reluctant ally illustrated the complex dynamics within the royal household. After his morning interview had been criticized as inappropriate public commentary on royal family matters, he had spent the day developing a comprehensive security plan that would allow Margaret's request to be granted safely. His professional pride demanded that any security arrangement bearing his approval meet the highest possible standards, regardless of his personal feelings about the underlying request. The security plan developed for the charity gala was remarkably sophisticated, involving coordination between multiple law enforcement agencies and private security firms. The route from Buckingham Palace to the event venue was carefully planned to avoid high-risk areas while maintaining the ceremonial dignity appropriate for a royal arrival. Backup vehicles and alternative routes were prepared for various contingency scenarios, and the venue itself underwent additional security preparations throughout the afternoon. Margaret's reaction to the Queen's decision was one of profound gratitude mixed with recognition of the responsibility now resting on her shoulders. She understood that the success or failure of this evening would significantly influence future royal protocol and the monarchy's approach to modernization. The pressure was enormous, but she felt confident in her ability to represent the royal family with dignity and effectiveness. The charity gala itself exceeded everyone's expectations in terms of both security execution and public relations impact. Margaret's arrival in the Queen's state car generated exactly the kind of positive publicity she had hoped for, with images of her elegant emergence from the historic vehicle appearing on front pages across Europe. The symbolism was powerful and unmistakable. The monarchy was confident enough in its newest member to entrust her with its most precious symbols of authority. Helen Morrison and the Children's Education Alliance found themselves the beneficiaries of unprecedented media attention as the evening progressed. Margaret's presence at the gala, arriving in the royal state car, elevated the event's profile far beyond what any traditional publicity campaign could have achieved. Donations exceeded the organization's wildest projections, with several major corporations announcing substantial contributions during the evening itself. Margaret's speech to the gala attendees was carefully crafted to acknowledge the controversy while focusing attention on the charitable cause that had brought everyone together. She spoke eloquently about the importance of educational opportunity for all children and the role that business leaders and philanthropists could play in creating positive social change. Her remarks received enthusiastic applause and were widely quoted in subsequent media coverage. The evening's success vindicated Margaret's original instincts about the importance of symbolic gestures in royal work. The state car had served its intended purpose of demonstrating royal support for the charitable cause while establishing Margaret's credibility as a serious representative of the monarchy. The message was clear. She was not merely a decorative addition to the royal family, but a working member capable of advancing important causes with dignity and effectiveness. Colonel Blackwood's security team performed flawlessly throughout the evening, proving that their initial concerns could be addressed through careful planning and professional execution. The success of the operation provided valuable lessons for future royal engagements and demonstrated the Royal Guard's ability to adapt their procedures when circumstances required flexibility. The Colonel's post-event report would become a template for similar situations in the future. Media coverage of the evening focused primarily on the successful outcome of the controversial request rather than the afternoon's tensions and debates. Images of Margaret engaging warmly with gala attendees, particularly the children who benefited from the charitable organization's programs, dominated news reports and social media posts. The controversy that had dominated the day's headlines was gradually overshadowed by positive coverage of the evening's achievements. The international reaction to the evening's success was uniformly positive, with royal correspondents in multiple countries praising the Queen's handling of the situation and Margaret's performance at the gala. European newspapers that had been critical of royal privilege in their morning editions published evening updates that emphasized the positive outcomes achieved through the charitable engagement. Public opinion began to shift as news of the gala's success spread through social media and evening news programs. Many of those who had initially criticized Margaret's request acknowledged that the evening had justified her confidence in the importance of symbolic gestures. The tangible benefits achieved for the Children's Education Alliance provided concrete evidence that royal protocol could be adapted to serve important social purposes. The resolution of the controversy established several important precedents for future royal protocol. The Queen had demonstrated that established procedures could be modified when circumstances warranted change, while also maintaining the security and dignity requirements essential to royal authority. The success of the evening provided a template for how similar requests might be evaluated and approved in the future. Palace staff members who had initially resisted Margaret's request found themselves reconsidering their positions as the positive outcomes became apparent. The evening had demonstrated that innovation and tradition could coexist successfully when changes were implemented thoughtfully and with appropriate safeguards. The experience would influence their approach to future protocol questions and their relationship with Margaret herself. Sir Hamilton Ashworth, whose initial amusement at Margaret's request had evolved into grudging respect for her determination, prepared a comprehensive report on the evening's events for the Queen's review. His analysis would help establish guidelines for similar situations in the future and provide lessons for managing the complex balance between royal tradition and contemporary expectations. The Children's Education Alliance found itself transformed overnight from a respected but relatively small charitable organization into a nationally recognized advocate for educational equity. The success of the gala provided them with resources and visibility that would enhance their effectiveness for years to come. Helen Morrison's organization had become an inadvertent beneficiary of royal modernization, demonstrating how protocol changes could generate positive social outcomes. Margaret's successful navigation of the controversy established her credibility within the royal family and enhanced her public profile as a capable representative of the monarchy. The evening had proven her instincts about the importance of symbolic gestures and validated her approach to royal engagement. She had successfully balanced respect for tradition with the need for innovation, earning the approval of both the Queen and the British public. The long-term implications of the evening extended far beyond the immediate success of the charity gala. The Queen's decision to approve Margaret's request and the positive outcomes that resulted signaled a new phase in royal modernization that would influence protocol decisions for years to come. The monarchy had demonstrated its ability to evolve while maintaining its essential character and authority. As Margaret returned to Buckingham Palace in the Queen's state car late that evening, she reflected on the day's extraordinary events and their significance for her future role within the royal family. The controversy had tested her resolve and diplomatic skills, but it had also established her position as a serious and capable representative of the monarchy. The evening's success had transformed what could have been a damaging conflict into a positive example of royal adaptation and effectiveness. The Queen's wise handling of the situation had strengthened rather than weakened royal authority by demonstrating that the monarchy could respond thoughtfully to changing circumstances while maintaining its essential dignity and security. The resolution of Margaret's request had become a model for how royal protocol could evolve to serve contemporary needs while preserving timeless values and traditions.